today so good that yesterday is jealous. Train your mind to be calm in every storm. These statements do not come from the Bible. They do not originate in an ancient book of wisdom, nor even in a modern self-help book. These phrases come from Twitter, a contentious social networking service with hundreds of millions of users around the world. Twitter is where people go to write down quick thoughts, complain about something, share a humorous insight, or offer a word of wisdom. Unlike Line, another social networking app, Twitter is controversial, for sure, and many people complain about it. But author Caitlin Tiffany says that no one can deny that Twitter has brought some amazing phrases into our lives. Things we can't imagine having read in any other place or any other time in history. But there is one sentence that Tiffany says is astounding in its clarity and salience. It described both the internet and our entire human world. What is that sentence? According to Tiffany, it is, everything happens so much. Everything happens so much. Twitter users have called it the general tweet of the decade and the defining text of our age. Yes, life just keeps happening so very much. In a world in which everything happens so much, where we can be quickly overwhelmed, we need a God who calms us, restores our souls, and leads us in the right paths. Today is known as Good Shepherd Sunday, the Sunday during the Easter season where the lessons provide some depth to that image of a good shepherd. Famously, Psalm 23 promises us that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. In that psalm, God gives us green pastures, quiet waters, a table of food, and an overflowing cup. The promise of Psalm 23 is rest, refreshment, guidance, and protection in a chaotic and threatening world. But we are not immature, are we? To be led by a good shepherd does not mean we are naive about the reality of wolves and thickets and lazy hirelings who might endanger the sheep. Yes, life happens so very much. Instead, amid all the uncertainty, the real and imagined, our peace comes from the presence of the Good Shepherd, Jesus, who prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23 begins with the assurance that God leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. The original Hebrew words of the psalm say more something to the effect of leads me beside waters of rest and restores my life. Psalm 23 tells us that God gives us 4 gifts to counteract the effects of chaos and confusion: water, food, protection, hospitality. In a restless and exhausting world, we need this, I believe. The most powerful is water. Waters can be full of chaos, as we know full well living here in Japan. Yet water is necessary for life, for survival. What is so special about water? Water has essential qualities, says the geography professor Ronan Foley, such as keeping us alive, cleansing our bodies. More importantly, in the sacrament of holy baptism, water is a sign of our cleansing and a sign of new life that comes from following Jesus. For example, everything was happening so much for Martin Luther at the start of the Reformation. Martin Luther lived a turbulent life during a turbulent time. Luther was constantly debating his opponents and in danger from the political authorities. Not surprisingly, Luther was often plagued with fear, anxiety, doubt, discouragement. So how did he manage that stress? Luther had a unique strategy, the story goes. Luther would stand up from whatever he was doing and would boldly exclaim, "I am baptized." He may have also written the same phrase in chalk on his desk to remind himself as he worked of his unbreakable connection to God through Jesus Christ and the communion of saints. I am baptized. We are baptized into the death and resurrection of Christ. When everything happens so much, we have the truth of God risen through Jesus Christ. God provides for us not only through water, but through food, protection, and hospitality. All these gifts are needed. The promise of Psalm 23 is that God makes me lie down in green pastures. That's the promise of food for the sheep. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That's protection. You prepare a table before me. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. That's hospitality. The psalm ends with the promise that goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Dwelling with God as Creator forever assures us that each of us is given a place in which God offers us goodness, love, and eternal shelter. But what about the many who do not have access to water, food, for those who feel vulnerable? The proper response to the good news of Psalm 23 and the good news of Jesus Christ is trust, writes scholar J. Clinton McCann. When we trust, we discover that life is not a reward to be earned. It is a gift to be lived and accepted and shared. There's nothing wrong with showing up for work, doing a respectable job, earning money, providing for ourselves, our families. But think about what happens if we look at all that as a reward based on our efforts instead of as a gift. When we believe that resources are scarce and we must scrounge for all that we can, we become fearful and listen to the wolf in sheep's clothing that teaches us to love too narrowly and too little. For example, one of the greatest of the miracles of Jesus, the feeding of the 5,000, occurred on a grassy hillside. There, Jesus became a good shepherd indeed, one who had compassion on the people and healed their sick. Then he ordered the people to sit down on the grass so they could eat and be filled. Jesus was like the shepherd of Psalm 23, who made his sheep lie down in green pastures. When the first disciples are feeling overwhelmed by all this crowd, Jesus says to them, "You give them something to eat." This mystifies the disciples, of course, since they only have 5 loaves, 2 fish, not much more. And the story goes on to tell us that Jesus does not feed the crowd himself, but after Jesus blesses the bread, he gives the loaves to the disciples, and then the disciples feed the people, and the people feed others. There is a miracle, enough for everyone. In that peaceful place, Jesus became the shepherd predicted by the Old Testament prophets. He became the long-awaited Son of David, the shepherd who feeds his people, protects them, and saves them. At the same time, like these same prophets, Jesus challenges us to extend the same compassion to others in a chaotic world, especially when everything happens so much. What does Psalm 23 mean for us on this Good Shepherd Sunday? To follow Christ, who is the spring of living water, is to do as the American poet Robert Frost would describe when he wrote, "The best way out is always through." Not hiding, afraid of the present, ignorant of who we are, our needs, our concerns, our prayers, our gifts, our talents. When everything happens so much, but trusting in the living water and going forth in faith, trusting that surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The gospel reminds us today to remember to whom we belong. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Therefore, for me, reciting the 23rd Psalm as we did is both a reminder and a confession. It reminds me that God is our only good shepherd, the one whose voice we can heed through Jesus Christ. It is also a confession, in that often I listen to my eternal fears, or the calls of wolves and lazy hirelings. Where do we go when life becomes chaotic and overwhelming? Let us heed the call of the Good Shepherd every day, who knows the one who gives us everything we need. We can respond every day with the words, "We are baptized." God offers water, food, protection, hospitality. And then God challenges us to show that compassion of Jesus, feeding others with our gifts, talents, and resources. Blessed Good Shepherd Sunday.